everyone, and welcome to the Dynamics 365 Practice Show. On the show today, we speak with Leah Bowling, Industry Vice President at Hitachi, and explore health, care, and insurance industries, two areas that she specializes in, as well as sales and pre-sales, and her experience over the past 10 years in this area. Hitachi is a global system integrator. We talk about best practice engaging with Microsoft. But before we begin, let's talk about field service, in particular, the way MapTasker and ISV harnesses all the power of Dynamics 365 field service and then extends it further with their field engineer for Dynamics 365 solution. Built specifically for companies that run field engineers, it allows them to gain access to detailed geospatial data from other internal systems. I especially like the opportunity it creates to bring advanced geospatial data from platforms like Esri, ArcGIS straight into Dynamics 365. Personally, I've done many projects that required Esri integration, and MapTasker would have made that a whole job a lot easier. MapTasker's field engineer for Dynamics 365 not only allows you to access data from platforms like Esri ArcGIS, but also right back into it, completing the cycle of data collection in the field. For more information on integrating Dynamics 365 with advanced geospatial systems, head over to maptasker.com and contact the MapTasker team today for a demo. Now, let's get on with the show. Remember, full show notes can be found at nz365guide.com/118. Lee, welcome to the Dynamics 365 show.
Thank you.
So good to have you on. I think this is a recording that's been a long time coming. You were recommended to come on the show some time ago. Tell me, what part of the world do you hail from? Where do you live? And what do you do when you're not working?
Well, we sometimes joke that I hail from a local Delta lounge, wherever that may be, because we travel so much.
Wow, is that right?
But I'm from New Orleans, born and raised here. I've moved around a little bit, but I'm back home now. And it's probably more notorious than most cities. So there's a lot about it that a lot of people know.
Wow, I always tell, whenever I was doing non-for-profit type pre-sales and projects, I always tell a story about New Orleans. And it was I heard it years ago at a convergence conference of a medical establishment, and they're doing a testimonial on how they had like 226 applications that they identified could all be moved to XRM. And they were on this journey, 106 of them or 103 of them from memory were all case management systems, and they were progressively migrating them all to the Dynamics platform. And my gosh, that would have been about 10 years ago.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of that story. I'd love to read up on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know who the medical organization was. It was like the chief of staff or somebody like this that was doing the presentation, as a customer presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's one graphic I actually use out of the slides. And it's a graphic I've copied time and time again, which is just like a bar chart showing all these apps and all the overheads that they produce, all the training, all the, security maintenance around them. And then they said, as each of these end of life, we're moving them all to, back then it was XRM, of course, what we'd call a power platform now. And yeah, it's such a great story. So, I've had so many companies that I've gone through and shown it to that have said, you know what, they've had 200, we've got 400 applications like that we could move across, 500, whatever. So that's what reminds me of New Orleans. I love New Orleans. I've had a couple of trips there, and it is a wonderful city.
Well, I love that you bring that up, that you're still using pieces of that slide, because I very much believe that even in the world of technology changing as quickly as it is, I think that sometimes there are just best practices and old school things that still work, no matter what the new features and functions may be. So, and there's New Orleans is certainly a city that has a lot of rich history, and we still do things, the same way we used to, and streetcars, things like that will probably never change.
So when you have visitors coming from out of town, what's the common sites that you take them to around New Orleans? And we couldn't mention New Orleans without mentioning the food, of course.
Of course. So food's definitely a big one. I've got a kind of a rolling Rolodex of favorite restaurants at the time, because there's always something new and fresh popping up. But there is one place that I always recommend, and it's just a fun, kind of cool, unique, it's a bar, and it's kind of cool and unique. There are plenty of places to get your fill bar wise in New Orleans. So I like to point out the ones that are my favorite. But the Malian Hotel has a bar with an actual active carousel in it, as in you sit down and the carousel actually spins as you're drinking. So imagine the conflict there of a spinning room while drinking, but but it's very cool. It's really fun. They've got very good, unique cocktails. It's right downtown in the French Quarter, and it's just an interesting kind of unique thing that's been around for forever. And I always recommend the Montleon Hotel, the Carousel Bar.
Do they serve the hurricane?
They do. You can ask for a hurricane there and get your sugary fill if you like.
Yeah. It's funny how like that just popped into my mind, and obviously it was something that I must have had while I was here at one point. So interesting. So when you're not working, what do you get up to?
So my husband and I being in New Orleans, we're definitely, I guess you would call us foodies. We love trying new restaurants, trying new wine, trying new food. And we kind of, the city's really our playground for that. And really when we plan trips, as much as I travel, I've got some points lying around that we will use every once in a while. And we kind of plan our trips based on what we're having for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, which is pretty fun. And then I do yoga pretty often to work out to make sure that I can eat more food.
Nice. What's some fun facts about the Mississippi I wouldn't know?
So they do these cruises on the Mississippi, and I've got a personal connection. The Creole Queen, the riverboat that you can go on to do cruises on the Mississippi River. My dad actually, him and his business partners built that boat and did cruises for a long time. Yeah, so that's kind of a fun little story. And we recently, a couple years ago, actually, he built it before I was even born. But a couple years ago, we went back and took a cruise, and it had been a long time since we'd done that as a family. It was really fun.
So good. So tell us about, what do you do that you're paid for? Kind of like, what's your job? Who do you work for? That type of thing.
Yeah, so I work for Hitachi Solutions. We're a global systems integrator, a global partner, Microsoft focused only. So full Microsoft stack. We have an Azure practice, a Dynamics practice, data science. We cover the full Microsoft stack, an Office 365 practice. So we kind of do everything Microsoft.
And so what area do you specifically operate in?
So I'm in sales, and I focus really on the insurance and healthcare industry. Those are the industries that are under my purview, and mainly in a sales and marketing role. I meet with clients every day, which I really enjoy, but it's probably close to a traditional sales and marketing role.
Mm-hmm. So tell me, how do you go about getting customers to kind of realize the value of the Microsoft stack, if you like?
Yeah, so it's a complex stack. There's a lot to offer. And I think really being focused and asking questions first and foremost on, what are their biggest pain points, and then letting us decide what the right tool is for that particular pain point. That's been a very helpful strategy for us, because there is so many apps, there's so many features within each app, there's so many options that Microsoft provides, which is great, but it can be overwhelming for a business user. So we usually start that conversation by saying, why don't you tell us what your biggest issues are, totally agnostic of technology, and then let us find the right tool for the job, because we've got a big toolbox.
So do you have like any competition though internally then? I've worked in large companies that had, big, let's say, SharePoint practices in the Office 365 space. And of course, I was always very dynamic centric, and a lot of SharePoint folks feel they can build a lot of what we can do in Dynamics. So how do you actually decide? You've understood the client's needs, but then how internally do you decide one tech is over another? Do you have, what's your process?
Yeah, so it's funny you bring that up, because we do have what we call our modern solutions team, and so they build custom apps on top of Azure. Well, obviously you can do a lot of customizations and even apps with Power Apps. So there's kind of this, this epic battle between the Dynamics team and the modern solutions team. They always want to build custom, and we always want to do Dynamics, and it's kind of a fun discussion. We look at a couple factors. Obviously, time to value is important, and so So if it's a small business need that we can have a solution for pretty quickly with a Power App, and it's just going to be a shorter timeline, then we might look at Power Apps or Dynamics first. Another thing is the particular solution that we're looking for, is it customer facing or partner facing? We usually recommend going more of the custom route or portal route, if you will, when it's customer or partner facing. So that's a pretty easy decision criteria as well. And then budget. Obviously, the client's going to have a problem they need to solve, and they're going to have a bucket of dollars that we can spend, and we want to honor what their appetite is. So we'll discuss those different variables. Usually help us come to a conclusion. And we even do projects where we might say, you know what, let's spin up a Power App first. Let's make sure that we get the features and we're solving the problem, and then maybe start with 10 users or 20 users or 50 users, if you will. And then if everyone kind of says, yeah, this is great, this little appy thing is exactly what we needed, maybe then we go custom with it. So there are kind of variable options within that. You don't have to kind of go with one and then stick with that particular solution. You can pivot after you've decided that you want to maybe graduate a little bit more. So we've got a couple ways to slice that.
So where does your new customers come from? So you'd have your traditional customers that you've been working with year over year. Is your role just in New Orleans, or are you operating nationwide in your specific function in insurance and healthcare?
Yeah, so in my function, I do oversee all of North America, so Canada and the US. So we've got clients all over the place that I go visit. So hence the miles that I've built up to take some free vacations.
I bet. Okay, so in that role then, how are you identifying or how are you onboarding new customers? Are they coming from things like RFI, RFPs, or is it directly from your own organization's marketing efforts, or are they from Microsoft? How does your spread, if you like, come into your funnel?
Yeah, so mostly through Microsoft. We're a very close partner of theirs. Obviously, they're our number one partner, and we work really closely with the industry teams at Microsoft. So I work with my counterparts on those teams to make sure that we're doing everything we can to help with the needs that the customers are having. So that's the majority. We do get a lot of clients based on referrals, a lot of big fun clients based on referrals, because we'll have great success with one client and they've got friends in the biz, and so they refer us over to their friends, and so that's a pretty good source of new clients for us as well. And then we do our own account-based marketing. We do have a full marketing team that does account-based marketing too. So we've got a couple streams, and I'd say that in the dynamic space, RFPs are pretty common. So RFIs or RFPs, we see them a good bit. We've got an RFP team that helps with those, so we see those a good bit.
So one thing you didn't mention there, and with your industry focus, do you find yourself attending industry conferences, in other words, non-Microsoft conferences, where the target industries you're operating are in and engaging that way at all?
We do. So we participate in HIMSS every year, which is the big healthcare conference. We've had a booth, not had a booth over the years, but we do go to that every year, meet with prospects and clients there, and really get information on the larger marketplace and what's going on, even outside of the tech stack, what's going on in the healthcare market. So that's always a good conference for us. And then we're doing InsurTech, which is more of the P&C insurance technology conference. It'll be in Vegas, so I'll head back to Vegas for another conference this year, which will be fun. But yeah, that's in Vegas, so we'll participate in that. And then on and off throughout the years, we've done IASA, Internet of Insurance is another kind of smaller boutique conference we've participated in. And then we've got some smaller conference speaking sessions that we do. Sometimes we get invited by clients to come and speak with them alongside them, which, yeah, those are my favorite. Those are really fun.
So it's obviously, my experience, it's a noisy space, whichever industry you're in. There's plenty of other people outside of Microsoft organization-wise competing. Who are you coming up against as the kind of key players in the insurance and healthcare sector that are from other vendors?
Yeah, so we obviously on the dynamic side, the CRM piece, the biggest competitor is Salesforce for sure. They've got a boutique product that sits on top of it by another vendor. That product's called Velocity. And then also there's a lot of niche players. I think within healthcare specifically, there are a lot of players in the space that will help with one very specific, utilization management maybe, or maybe it's going to be, referral management for providers. And they'll have a very small niche solution that does exactly what they need it to do, which has been really interesting to watch because it's kind of getting back to that point solution methodology, which we used to see. Then when people started moving to platform or enterprise, and we're starting to see point solutions pop back up again and have popularity. So especially in the healthcare space, that's been really interesting to watch that unfold.
That is interesting. So how do you compete? Are you saying in that scenario the point solution, I assume, is like 100% fit, probably an off the shelf type solution? How do you then compete with your, no, we're going to come in and customize it to meet exactly your needs?
Yeah, so what our philosophy really is, point solutions come with the overhead of managing point solutions. So what ends up happening, and we've had clients who have done this. I've got an example of a large manufacturing client, and they had 13 apps that sat on top of their, kind of baseline core product solution that did all these different things. And they had one technology person dedicated to each app because the app was its own set of technologies, its own set of release cycles. It becomes really cumbersome. So there's a logical strategy behind eliminating point solutions. So that's more of a business strategy conversation of, it's okay to have a few, but do you want to live in a world where now you have an entire staff dedicated to point solutions when those staff members, those resources could be doing other things for you guys, because we could probably rebuild 99.9% of that functionality with a Power App or something like that. Yeah.
And so what is if you like, the pushback, what are you seeing from customers around that story? Are they engaging with it, or are they, tending towards the point solution? What's your experience?
Well, it's interesting because people are used to point solutions on their personal devices, right? And so they're used to having their banking app and their Uber app or whatever those apps are that just do that one thing. So they do have that perspective sometimes, like, well, I like point solutions. I like my little apps that I have on my phone. My comment back always is, yes, but do you love that your banking app updates once a week and you can't remember your password because everything's Face ID now? And so then you can't get in because they've sent out an update. Nobody loves the experience of having those updates be completely out of your control and on different cadences. And so they can usually relate with that. And that's usually where I go with it is, I like point solutions too. I'm a consumer, but I also don't love updates where I can't remember my password and I can't get in because it's got to spin and I don't have great Wi-Fi, so it's going to take a minute. The worst user experience for that is you're getting on an airplane and you need the GoGo Entertainment app to watch movies on the plane, and you go to update it, and because you're on the airplane, your Wi-Fi is kind of bad, and it doesn't update in time, and then you're on a 3-hour flight with no entertainment.
3 hour, you're lucky. Mine minimum is a 9-hour flight to
Oh,
get
goodness.
from
Yeah.
London to America, and I know exactly what you mean, right? There's no cell phone signal out there, and then if you don't get on GoGo in time, you're right. You don't get the app down in time. It's a problem.
That's right. So that is a great example of why point solutions can cause a problem when it comes to user experience. They're great because they have everything that you need in that one little app for that one little use case, but not great because there are those issues with it that are out of your control. Whereas a Power App or, a Microsoft Stack or platform is going to give you full control over those little annoying nuances that come with point solutions.
So tell me, how do you kind of engage with the customer to really deliver business outcomes and not just technical solutions? The partner of the past has often been focused on, let's get the technology in, and adoption can sometimes not be top of mind. What steps do you take to address that?
Yeah, so I think this will go back to you having an illustration or graphic or story that you're still using. We have a methodology that we've been using since I arrived at Hitachi. And it starts with asking the question of why. Why are we doing what we're trying to do here? And we do not start with technology. We layer in technology as the last step. So we really have stuck to that methodology over the years. And I think that we've been successful with it because it always starts with kind of that strategic focus, the why of the project itself. And then we layer in things like best practices, what implementation methodology we're using, and then we go to select the technology. And sticking with that, we call it our customer success formula, if you will, and sticking with that methodology. It's it's old, it's 10 years old, it's longer than I've been with the company, but it's tried and true and it works. And that's really helped us stay in line with not geeking out on the tech and insisting everything's a Power App because they're so cool and awesome. It really helps us focus on what's the right tool for the right job.
Excellent. And so then do you have a customer engagement plan that goes beyond the first project or the first engagement that kind of ongoing exposes customer to the power of why or the art of the possible within in the organization?
We do. So we have a couple tools that we use, but one of them is what we call kind of an enterprise roadmap. And the enterprise roadmap for us is really about not only identifying the phases of the project, but also identifying kind of what that really customer experience end of the day nirvana state could look like. And once we get the things like get all the data in the right spot, right? That's kind of a table stakes. You got to have your 360-degree views. You got to have your data all in the right spot. Once you get to that level, then you can start to get really, really creative with some of the additional things you can do with AI and machine learning. And an enterprise roadmap, if it's done correctly, should take into account, here are the baseline things that have to happen. Here's phase 1 and maybe phase 2 and 3. And then where do we want to be when we grow up? Who do we want to be when we grow up as an organization? And if the answer is we want to be our customer's most valuable partner, we want to be easier to do business with, whatever that strategic vision is, what are the additional technology capabilities that are a little bit more modern, a little bit more new, that we can take advantage of in order to get there?
Mm-hmm. So can you give me some examples of, ones that would be top of mind? You don't have to mention the company names that have been really successful outcomes that you've been on.
Yeah, so it's funny you bring that up. I just got asked this question from another colleague of mine. We really have examples we've worked with 4 clients in particular that have taken a different approach for really that nirvana state of the customer experience or a modern customer engagement. And they all had the same strategic vision, but they went about it in a couple different ways. One of them decided that they wanted to go about it with the consumer facing apps. So the app that their customers interacted with, they wanted it to be the best app in the entire world. And they wanted our experience team, which we have on staff, to go through and help them make sure that the app was the best experience, that the users really loved it. And so that obviously was a custom solution that the underpinnings was Dynamics, all sitting on Azure. And they worked with our experience team to make sure that the app was the absolute best experience that it could possibly be. Kind of another way to look at it is we had another client who took an internal approach. They said, if we're going to be our client's best partner, we're going to have to make sure that our employees know how to treat customers well. And they went to and did a field trip to Disneyland, one of the best and brightest in customer service, right? They're kind of a gold standard when it comes to customer experience and customer service. And the executives all went down, spent a couple weeks there, and really started to absorb what it means for them internally to have that change occur to where they'll be the best partner for their clients. So 2 different approaches. One was focused more on technology, one was focused more on culture, but they had the same outcome. So it's been really fun to kind of watch those 2 examples of how things have unfolded for those clients.
So good. So I'm interested, in your experience, you've been at Hitachi for some time, and I see that prior to that you're with Customer Effective, which you'd know Scott though from there, wouldn't you? Who's now gone to Microsoft.
Scott Sewell,
yeah, old friend of mine. They say he's got a black eye this week.
I saw that on Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to call him. That looked pretty painful.
Yeah, he said he tripped and just hit the sidewalk with his head. So that's how it happened. Yeah, it's a bit rough. Anyhow, I digress. So tell me, what has changed in sales over the last 10 years? What has stayed the same, and what have you seen change in how you're doing sales engagements?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So there's a couple things that have definitely stayed the same. I truly believe that people buy from people that they trust and people that they like and people that they think they can do business with. We've got a couple baseline principles of the ways that we sell that haven't changed at all. We still tell other customer stories, and to us that really builds trust. We can do what you're asking us to do because we've done it for X, Y, and Z. So we still do a lot of what we call reference-based selling or storytelling. That's never never going to go away. We do not, we don't really talk negative about the other products in the marketplace. We think that they're great products. We think that they can be useful, and that they have their own merit. And it's not really necessary for us to take the negatives of those products in order to show the value of Microsoft. So those two principles really have not changed at all. In my opinion, and I'm just one salesperson, what has changed is the access to information about solutions that has made our customers more intelligent buyers. We're not having to explain what certain things are and to explain how things work and to explain methodologies. That information is readily available. Customers are accessing it and using it, and they're coming to the table with a much better grip on what the landscape is like, so that our buyers are more intelligent, which just keeps us more honest. But that really is, to me, is what has shifted the most, is that the information around deployments and technology and all the nuances involved is readily available, and clients are taking advantage of it.
Okay, so what part then does social media? We've heard the whole, the social selling and things like that. Do you see that as part and parcel of your daily activity, as in whether you're engaging via social with your customers or understanding your customers better via social?
Yeah, so it definitely goes both ways. It certainly helps us understand our clients when an executive or a leader on the team has an interview or writes a little blog post about what's concerning to them, what's exciting to them, where they're going, where their future's headed. We certainly access that information and take advantage of those talking points for sure. So we certainly take advantage of it. What's been really interesting is that, we've had clients say things like, I Googled you, and I Googled your company and I landed on this page or I landed on that page. So we are aware that our brand and our brand presence is important to our prospects and to our clients. And being conscientious of that, our marketing department does a great job of making sure that we have brand awareness and that our clients, when they go to Google us, if you will, or Bing us, I suppose, Microsoft land.
No, never say. You can only say that in America because Bing doesn't really work outside of America.
We definitely use Google us for sure. But when they go to do that, we want to make sure that they have rich content that they can land on. So it's been fun, because that used to not be the case. I used to not hear that from clients, and now I'm hearing that much more frequently. Oh, well, we Googled you and we heard about this story or this client or that client, and so yeah, it's definitely been something that we're conscientious of, and we want to make sure that when they go looking, that they find the right content and that they get their needs met there.
Mm-hmm. What part does LinkedIn play in how you engage?
So LinkedIn is huge for me personally. I'm constantly consuming different pieces of information on LinkedIn, whether it's job changes or people moving, starting companies and different things like that, or just the articles and the blog posts and the retweets and the different things that people are sharing on LinkedIn can also be really telling and really helpful. I've got some, the Sales Navigator tool. I've got companies that I follow. I've got notifications set up, and I really do use that. I've got a couple different news sources or information sources that I subscribe to, and I certainly use LinkedIn as one of those. So it's kind of my morning daily digest, if you will, of kind of what's going on out there in the wild, and LinkedIn is definitely a really helpful source of information for me.
So do you spend more of your time in, let's call LinkedIn traditional, right? Where, I've currently got your profile up in front of me and I can click a button, go view in Sales Navigator. And then, I would get a different view of your profile from my Sales Navigator point of view. So where do you find you're spending or gaining a market intelligence more? Is it from the vanilla version of LinkedIn or inside your Sales Navigator view?
So when I do a company deep dive prior to a first meeting or something of that nature, it's definitely Sales Navigator. But on the daily, because I've got my notifications set up so great, I'm really just a consumer. I really get it in my Outlook inbox is where I read it. And I know that information's coming from the tool, but I'm not necessarily in there blocking and tackling. So that really is an enjoyable experience for me. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to open up another window. I just get that information in my inbox. When it is time, though, to do a deep dive, I'm usually starting in LinkedIn and then launching to Sales Navigator, or starting in our CRM tool and launching to Sales Navigator to really get some, behind the scenes market information about a particular client.
Okay, one last question then on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It's come out of what you've said, is that you say you've set up alerts and things,
Mhm.
as in that's something I don't do, and what do you mean by that?
So I've got alerts or automated emails set up based on changes or posts or different things. So I'll get in my inbox, I'll get, you're following this company and there was someone changed jobs, or you're following this company and someone posted this thing, so that I don't have to go fishing for that information. It just alerts me based on those things happening.
So it's more based on what you're following, auto generates those alerts, right?
That's right.
Excellent. I've learned something new about LinkedIn today. That is so good. And I teach a lot of people how to use LinkedIn, and it's something that I've not actually used myself, and so I might go out and do that. Okay, so next thing I want to talk about is pre-sales. And
Sure.
what's your background and experience in pre-sales?
So my very early background was I started right out of college, started working at a pharmaceutical company who had a new division they were starting. And that division was a sales division, a fulfillment division of the pharmaceuticals. And we purchased Dynamics way back in the day to start that project. And the executives kind of looked around the room and they said, "You're young, you know how to use apps, go figure it out." So that's how I cut my teeth. My next job, well, we worked with a partner. And so I got exposure to what partners were like, what they did, how they helped us. It was a local boutique firm down out of Baton Rouge. And I actually thought, I really like that side of things. I like helping people. I think I would enjoy helping people learn how to do things with this tool. It's a really powerful tool. I really enjoy working with it. So my first job coming to the partner side of the house was in pre-sales. And I did that for several years and really enjoyed, I really enjoy learning about the technology and then really the translation of what the technology means for the business users. Doing those demo presentations, I really enjoyed that part of the partner channel for a long time. And you kind of are always on the cutting edge of things because you're always getting, with your Microsoft friends, they're always sending you the latest and greatest. And I really enjoyed kind of being on the edge of things and hearing about the latest features and how we can take advantage of them. So that role was really fun for me.
How do you see what do you see the separation of roles when it comes to sales and pre-sales?
So at where we live at Hitachi, the way it kind of boils down is the sales leaders, like myself currently, are industry experts. And we're there to help tell the stories, help solve the industry specific problems that the client is having. And the pre-sellers also have industry background, but they're the technical leaders in the room. If there is a technical question or we need to translate a business problem into a technology solution, they're the experts on that. And so usually that helps serve both audiences, both business and technical, and that kind of gets everyone's needs met in the room. And we really shape our team based on what we think the clients are going to need, how we anticipate that. Well, that sometimes means that we also bring in someone from the Azure side of the house, someone from the Modern Solutions team. And so we stack our teams, our pre-sales versus our pure sales. We really stack those based on what we think the client's going to be looking for.
So good, so good. So in your experience, observation, tell me, what do you see as a standout, a pre-sales person? What do they do consistently that impresses you, or really that you've seen effectively move the sale forward?
So I always say that you might not win a deal with a great demo, but you could certainly lose one with a bad one. So I
So
think
true,
that
so true.
I think that a great demo certainly moves the needle and helps you. It's not going to be everything, but it is really important and critical. A bad demo, though, can really leave the potential users, with a bad taste in their mouth. And so I think that it's really important, first and foremost, to make sure that the features and functionality of the presentation make sense, that they're clear, that they're clean, and that everything kind of flows nicely together. So if it's going to be a great, feature function demo, it's got to be storytelling and connected with some sort of scenario. You have to have, in insurance land, I'm a salesperson and I've got, for commercial group sales, let's say I've got an RFP I'm responding to. How do I manage that in SharePoint? What does my opportunity record look like? How do I capture group information? And then, kind of post sales, after we get a quote out to them, we go a couple rounds on that. Then how do we actually implement or onboard that group? And what's my view as a salesperson into the project of onboarding the group, kind of walking them through soup to nuts, a full story of a day in the life, if you will. I think that that's really important to a great feature function demo, that it's kind of layered with storytelling. The other thing that I think is important, that we've got pre-sellers on the team who are just really good at, is the data. it's really fun, and you see customers' eyes light up when the external broker that they're working with at the insurance company is a broker that is one of their top brokers, right? You pick people off of LinkedIn that is the sales professional that they partner with at that brokerage firm, that's the top broker that they know. That's when you really start to see their eyes light up, and that's always fun to have them react that way. I remember one demo where we were trying to show the different types of media you could use with the knowledge base. And so we grabbed a YouTube video that the company had done on wellness. It was a health plan, and embedded it into one of the knowledge base articles. And I mean, they just got a kick out of it. They thought it was the funniest thing. It was this cute little, I think it was like a Michael Jackson Thriller video that they'd done about wellness, and they got a kick out of it. And they really enjoy having the data be real to them. I think that's really the fit and finish and polish next level step after you get the base functions and features down and a good story. Layering in relevant data to the client is always excellent.
Have you seen multimedia coming into these presentations a lot more? So, everything from video content, maybe video testimonials, and a really seeing the whole pre-sales sales process, when you're in the customer's boardroom doing the presentation, is becoming more of a theatrical type of experience than perhaps it was in the past?
I do. I've got a really strong opinion about playing videos with audio in the room. One,
against it or for it?
I'm against it. I'm very against it. There's a couple reasons why. I completely agree that hearing a customer say their story from their perspective is very powerful. However, the technology challenges with making sure that the audio is right so that it feels like a theater type of video is very difficult. And so unless it's kind of you get in there an hour early, you make sure that the audio is going to be super loud and that everyone in the room is going to be able to hear it. That's usually a challenge because there's this low audio, the people in the back can't hear it. So I'm usually against that. However, the other types of ways that it becomes more theatrical is we're starting to see more of, two big screens, and one is this kind of persona and one is that type of persona, different types of things coming into the mix like bots. At our customer conference, our pre-sales team did a really fun demo where it was IoT related. And so they had a little toy motorcycle up on stage, and he was using his iPhone to video that toy car or toy motorcycle. And then it was bringing back real data about the engine and the replacement wheels and things like that. Very interactive. And then he actually had mapped out the building, right? So that we could do IoT around where a service person is in a particular campus. And he left the room, and you could see his little bean kind of following him around the hotel. So really fun interactive demos that I do think it's becoming more of a show than it used to be in the past.
So good, so good. I totally agree. Tell me about your relationship or how you engage with Microsoft and the importance of nurturing a healthier relationship with key stakeholders in Microsoft.
Yeah, so we make a concerted effort to make sure that we are doing everything we can to meet Microsoft's needs. And in turn, they're making sure that we have what we need to be supported in a sales cycle, and in delivery, of course, as well, is really important. So we do line up with our Microsoft counterparts. We have an org chart from them, and we kind of say, okay, who lines up here, and make sure that there are regular touch points with those individuals. And it's a two-way conversation. How can we help you, and how can they help us? And I think that the regular cadence of setting expectations of what we can and can't do, what we do and do not need, I think that's really helpful. In particular, because Microsoft, does reorgs fairly often, we try to keep up as much as we can with making sure that when someone new lands in a position, that they know that Hitachi's here to help, and that we have people that have been doing whatever they're attempting to do on the partner side for a long time, and so we can help as much as we can there. We like to be forward about that because we know that that's challenging. You get put in a new role, you might not be sure how this or that kind of works and interacts, and we like to be there to kind of help those new individuals adjust to their new role.
So this is the new individuals within Microsoft.
That's right. I mean, they might come from the outside, but oftentimes it's just someone who's been around the channel and now they've landed in a new role. And so whoever we were working with previously has moved to another role, and so we want to make sure that they feel supported like the previous person did as well.
So what have you found the most effective way to help Microsoft? As in, let's say the new person coming in. I've had a lot of experience. I used to work out of a Microsoft office 1 day a week full time for about 2 years when I was in Australia. And so I did a lot of that building relationship, with them, but I could see where I could fill the gaps that they didn't have. How do you see you assist Microsoft, down at that kind of engagement level that it's, they're engaging with the same people you're engaging with in your customer?
Yeah, so we literally go through an org chart exercise to make sure first and foremost that we're not going to make you, if you need something from Hitachi, we're going to give you one person that you can contact. I think consistency is key because people get comfortable with people, they trust people, and it's your livelihood and your business. So if you have to meet a new person every time you need a different thing within Hitachi, that can get frustrating. So we definitely like to align 1v1 relationships with a Microsoft team so that they can get used to working with and used to the style and the cadence of how that individual works so that they can build some trust there that can reduce a lot of extra communication or extra overhead simply because, we're kind of still sniffing each other out, if you will, kind of still in the dating period. So that usually has been an effective tool or way for us to approach making sure that relationship is solid.
Yes, excellent, excellent. Just looking at insurance and healthcare, highly regulated industries, which I know you specialize in, what's the lay of the landscape in their adoption or, if you like, their digital journey that they're on?
Yeah, so especially in insurance and healthcare, they are highly regulated, and they're starting to realize, or really they are realizing that the same consumers that are used to the type of touch and service and knowledge about them that have consumer apps, right? Things like, Amazon or the other tools they're using, Uber, those consumers also purchase insurance. And so the expectation is there that their insurance companies are going to behave and react to them like the other consumer apps that they're using. So it's been really interesting to kind of see the dial be turned up and the pressure really be turned up on the expectation that consumers have as it bleeds over into the insurance, healthcare, and property and casualty insurance space. So the expectation is there, and they're now trying to do everything that they can in order to meet those needs and to meet those expectations. It's, at this stage in the game, it's unacceptable for a claim to take, 90 days. People have expectations that it's just not going to take that long. It should take, 24 to 48 hours. And I shouldn't have to, wait to get in touch with the person who can help me with something. And you should anticipate that I have needs. And so it's been really fun to work with them really as it around modernization of that customer experience or member experience. That's been a big focus. And we had a lot of fun working with our clients around that particular issue.
Have you taken a look at the Microsoft Healthcare Accelerator, and are you incorporating that into any projects?
We have. So we actually worked with Edgar Wilson, who is an ex-Hitachian. And so we worked in lockstep with Microsoft on that accelerator to make sure that it matched the data model that we had for our own accelerators, if you will. And so we worked hand in hand with them. And it's been really fun to see the evolution of that tool and how it has affected the market and really just been what it's supposed to be, an accelerator to the types of integrations and data that they need to get at, not just from the dynamic space, but from the other tools in the other areas too.
So are other providers, other partners, other perhaps ISVs, are you seeing them use like the common data model that's available in that healthcare accelerator?
Yeah, so I think that the general philosophy behind the common data model is excellent. And I think that a year ago, I would have said adoption's a little bit low, but I think now people are really starting to grasp the concept and philosophy behind it. And I definitely think that people are paying attention and leveraging it as much as they can in the current state for sure.
Excellent, excellent. Well, it's been very interesting talking to you. Time has flown. I just always like to wrap up with some quick fire questions.
Sure.
So here they are. What's the number one album that would be played frequently on your playlist?
I'm embarrassed to say this, but the Adele, very old school, kind of her first album, I just love it, and I should not sing that as loud as I do, but I could. That's just a oldie but a goodie. I love her music, and I can kind of jam out to that at any point in time.
I think she's a bit of a timeless artist as well, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it appeals at so many levels. It's a pity she stopped singing, really.
I know. I'm hoping that she comes back, kind of surprises us all. But that first album just, it gets me. It really gets
Yeah,
me.
yeah, I'm sure she will. What's the one thing that you've always wanted to do and you haven't done yet?
So my husband and I are big travel buffs, and neither of us have been to Paris. So we've done Europe, and we really just feel like Paris is a bucket list thing. I want to go to the Eiffel Tower. I want to, eat croissant. Like I want to do all of that. So that's definitely on the bucket list to kind of do the Parisian thing, and I'm hoping I get to do that someday.
Are you going to wait till Notre Dame gets rebuilt?
I haven't decided if we should wait or kind of go now and, and experience kind of the middle of that process.
It's interesting, as in I've been through Notre Dame before it burnt down and had the fire, and it struck me as one of these cathedrals that hadn't been as well maintained as a lot of other cathedrals have been across Europe. That was just it seemed quite dark inside, and so I think this might rejuvenate the entire thing. But yeah, Paris is just one of those wonderful, wonderful cities that I think you could go for weeks and really never get bored with it, outside of the common touristy things.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to planning that trip when it comes.
You got to go up Mount Mar, just amazing view over the city as well. It's well worth a visit. When you think of a person being successful, who comes to mind?
Like a specific individual?
Yeah, maybe.
My criteria really, and this was taught to me by a mentor of mine, but you're successful when you make other people be successful. I really believe that. And it's hard to remember and adopt sometimes. Selfishly, you want to advance your own career. You want to do really well. And my first boss at Hitachi, actually, Brad Kuntz, taught me that that's really what success means. If you can turn around and help other people get what they want in their careers and be successful, that's true. That's the type of success that is lasting. And so that's probably someone, him and my dad, I think, are both have that philosophy that's someone that I think is, as when I think of success, I think that's definitely part of it.
That's awesome. Do you have any recommendations as a future guest for the podcast?
I think so. There is a colleague of mine, Jackie Siemens, who I think you would have a great time with. She's very knowledgeable. She's a consultant, but actually she's got a new role within Hitachi as the executive sponsor intern to our CEO. So she'll have a lot of business insight, and she in particular has done a really good job of integrating kind of the global idea of how consulting firms come together from a global perspective and really melding onshore and offshore teams, and how do you make that work from a culture standpoint. So she should have some really awesome things to discuss. So if you'd like to have her as your next guest, that would be my recommendation.
I'd love it if you could make the introduction. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show. If people want to connect with you online, where's the best place for them to do that?
LinkedIn is probably the best. My profile is Leah Quartano and then my married name Bowling. So I think there's a parentheses around Quartano, bowling like the game, but LinkedIn is the best place to connect with me. I check it pretty regularly. Like I said, I get those updates and stuff. So that's the easiest way to connect.
Hey, thanks again for joining us today on the Dynamics 365 show. I'm your host, Business Applications MVP Mark Smith, otherwise known, of course, as the NZ365 guy. I'm trying out something new, and that is live streaming. If you want to chat with Steve Mordew and myself on air, please check us out every Wednesday on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/NZ365 guy. If you subscribe, hit the bell, you'll get notified 1 hour before we go live for that show. If you have any questions that you want to raise or you want us to address on the show, feel free to reach out and ask, and we'll be sure to get them on the air. Anyhow, bye for now.